Let's go. So could their lives have been saved? That's the overarching question. Ambassador Chris Stevens, Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith, former Navy SEALs Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods. The House Benghazi Select Committee saying then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton should have been aware of that deteriorating security situation in Benghazi after so many of America's allies had pulled up stakes from there. The exhaustive report also pierces the White House narrative that an anti-Muslim viral video caused it all. Committee Chair Trey Gowdy on the potential help that never showed up.
Nothing could have reached Benghazi because nothing was ever headed to Benghazi. No U.S. military asset was ever deployed to Benghazi despite the order of the Secretary of Defense at 7 o'clock that night. So Washington had access to real-time information, but yet somehow they thought the fighting had subsided.
Democrats on the Select Committee are slamming that report, saying its only purpose is to damage Clinton's candidacy for the White House. And this from her spokesperson, quote, "Far from honoring the 4 brave Americans who died, the Benghazi Committee has been a partisan sham since the start," end quote. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge live on this for us from Washington. Good morning, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Harris. The Republican majority report identifies for the first time a key White House meeting on September 11, 2012, about 3 hours into the terrorist attack. The meeting included senior deputies to the cabinet, as well as then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. At that time, the terrorist attack in Benghazi was ongoing. Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith was dead. Ambassador Chris Stevens was missing. And the 2 former Navy SEALs who died defending the CIA base were still alive. But instead of focusing on getting immediate military help to the Americans, the report found the focus was on a video wrongly blamed by the White House for inspiring the assault. Quote, "Much of the conversation focused on the video, which is surprising given no direct link or solid evidence existed connecting the attacks in Benghazi and the video at the time. 5 of the 10 action items from the rough notes of the 7:30 p.m. meeting referenced the video." Clinton's State Department deputy, Patrick Kennedy, told investigators they were concerned about diplomatic sensitivities and whether military personnel sent to Libya should wear uniforms. According to one military commander, his team changed in and out of uniform at least 3 times that night. At the news conference this morning, Republicans made their case.
They're as concerned, actually more concerned, about whether they're going to be offending the Libyan government by how it is that this rescue is proposed to take place than whether the rescue is actually successful. Marinate in that for a second.
Unlike the 2011 raid that killed Osama bin Laden, where the President, Secretary of State Clinton, and the National Security Team gathered in the White House Situation Room to watch events unfold, there was no such gathering of the main players on the night of the Benghazi terrorist attack, even though they were available in Washington, D.C. That evening, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta ordered access to Libya, but while previous investigations found they were not able to get there in time, as you mentioned, today's report found conflicting orders from the State Department and Pentagon derailed that military response. Harris.
Well, Catherine, last we saw you was just yesterday, and it had just broken. The news was breaking that Trey Gowdy and the Select Committee, the House Select Committee, were trying to get President Obama to come on board and answer some questions. Any new developments on that?
We asked at the news conference this morning whether there was, in fact, a covert weapons operation in Benghazi, and that explained why the U.S. government had such a large footprint. Chairman Gowdy said they made progress on this issue, and they put those questions to the president, but the White House counsel has advised them that he will not be answering their questions. One of the takeaways I have from this today is that Fox News was first to report 6 days after the attack, myself along with senior executive producer Pamela Brown, that there was no demonstration, and this channel stuck with that reporting for 2 weeks until the rest of the media, and in fact the administration, admitted that there was no protest and really no link to this video. Harris.
Everybody went down that road following the top of the leadership where the buck stops, the White House, and then it turned out that it wasn't true. Catherine Herridge, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You know, Sandra, I'm looking at some details here. So 2 years, $7 million on this investigation. It looks heavily at the military, the CIA, administration officials for their response on September 11, 2012. So much new information here, too.
And clearly the fact that we continue to learn more through this investigation proves that not all the questions have been answered. As Hillary Clinton continues to state, every time her campaign has been plagued with questions about that night, and clearly we still don't know some things. But Pete, it's hard. Like you saw Kansas GOP Congressman Mike Pompeo said the findings of this report show it's unambiguous the administration knew immediately it was a terror attack, as KT McFarland just said in the previous hour. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton was orchestrating a political response rather than Americans who were still in harm's way planning a rescue mission.
Senator, it's borderline criminal what happened here. Hillary Clinton knew immediately, and she told her daughter and after the attack happened that it was a terrorist attack. She told the Egyptian prime minister that it was a terrorist attack. But she went in front of the American people time and time again over the past couple days after the attack, saying that it was this video. More so, she looked the survivor's mother in the eye at the funeral and said that we're going to get the person that made this video. It is it's mismanagement, and it's borderline criminal.
I do want to get this in, that 8 hours after the assaults began, and this is what Trey Gowdy just told reporters a short time ago on Capitol Hill, not a single wheel of a single U.S. military asset had been put toward Libya. And he asked, just think about that for a second.
No, it's amazing. And I mean, let's really drill down on some of the new details that came out of this, because we don't want to rehash the same points. And the report is online at our website, everywhere else. I think there are a lot of places.
Pages.
So I encourage you to read it for yourself and make your own decision. But this idea that there was a meeting that began at 7 or 7:30 with folks that were there, 5 out of the 10 action items that they walked away from that meeting with, 5 of them dealt with the narrative around that movie. Remember, at that moment, Ambassador Stevens was still missing. No one knew where he was. People were calling and begging for help, begging for their lives. 50% of the items that they decided to do were about messaging on an unrelated movie. That's outrageous.
So, Jedediah, we don't want to lose sight of how close this was to a presidential election. 56 days. And so tightening on a message politically might not be shocking, but the timing of how quickly that tightening happened during the event and then thereafter is really interesting, intriguing, and quite disturbing.
It is disturbing, and it's all political. And I would remind people on that note of 2 things. Number one, no one from the intelligence community briefed Susan Rice. Political appointees briefed Susan Rice with political talking points. And secondly, Ben Rhodes, if you remember the email that was sent, a memo on September 14th, 2012, it detailed 2 things, 2 goals. One was to underscore that these protests are rooted in an internet video, even though they know already that it had nothing to do with the video, and 2, to reinforce the president and administration's strength and steadiness in dealing with difficult challenges. So basically, let's push the facts aside. That's what happened there. They had to project an image that they were strong on terrorism. And if it had been known that they ignored security risks, that they didn't do what needed to be done in the name of prevention, and that they weren't honest with the American people about what was happening, that would have hurt President Obama and then Hillary Clinton, who probably already had plans to do politically exactly what she's doing right now. So they covered it up completely, and they made a political decision, hoping that the media, I guess, wouldn't do their job and uncover the facts and the reality of what went down.
So, Pete, you'll hear Democrats today say, be careful with those words, cover up, so on and so forth. How unreasonable is it to get to where Jedediah just went? I mean, is it a relatively straight line, or are there some things that we really don't know that are in the gray area? President Obama's not answering questions?
Read the report. I mean, the American people can read the report, and that's what I liked what Trey Gowdy said earlier. Read the report. If you have questions, if you're wondering what the timeline was, read the report. Ben Rhodes is the gentleman who bragged to the New York Times just a couple weeks ago that he fabricated the selling of the Iran nuclear deal.
That reporters know nothing.
I mean, that reporters know absolutely nothing. The American people know nothing, and you need stories to sell. And that's what they did with this YouTube video.
So if I'm following you right, then that would mean that that could be any part of what the administration is stepping in, including this. We wouldn't know the whole story because perhaps, per Ben Rhodes, am I following you right, that there would have been
Harris.
a directive someplace to either muddy the message, as we know happened with the Iran deal?
Not a single CIA officer briefed Susan Rice before going out on TV. Only political people did it.
How is it not a cover-up if she's emailing her daughter and talking to the Prime Minister of Egypt and saying that this is terrorism, and then going out and having Susan Rice go out and talk about some video? I mean, that guy went to jail. He was jailed for a video. He was held more responsible for what was going on than the terrorists were because of her. I don't understand how anybody can look at these facts and the information that she had and not say that something was covered up. It was obviously covered up because that's not the message that was projected out.
I want to go now to Representative Martha Roby of Alabama, House Select Committee on Benghazi, and what she had to say today. Listen carefully, and then we'll come right back to Sandra. Let's watch.
While our guys were on the ground, taking gunfire and mortar attacks, Washington was moving at a snail's pace. In Washington, the administration was more concerned about diplomatic sensitivities with the Libyans and promoting its policy as successful than it was about the American safety that they sent to Benghazi.
Look, there's obviously a lot of passion behind this, and you watch this, you get chills thinking about all of these Americans that were not getting the help that they were calling in. But then you take it to the political angle here. And I had a Trump advisor to his campaign this morning tell me that this is maybe where Donald Trump has been weak. He needs to be hitting Hillary Clinton and her campaign harder on this because we have so many more facts, including this report today.
The best way to attack Hillary Clinton on this is use her own words. Donald Trump doesn't need to step right in the middle of this. Lay out the facts, make the case, and that damns Hillary in the end, period.
Which words in particular would you use of hers?
It's the timeline. When she knew that it wasn't a video, when she knew it was a terrorist attack, and what she told her own daughter.
Well, what you said, Jedediah, almost immediately.
Almost immediately.
So the timeline language is what you would point to.
Absolutely. Hillary versus Hillary is the worst crime out there, right? No Republican will really score points by taking on Hillary Clinton. It's use her own words against her. Time and time again, that works.
You know, we talk about it being on Hillary Clinton's watch. It's also on Barack Obama, the president's watch, too. This will become part of his legacy. Real quickly.
Without question. I mean, you just look at the emails the very next day that she sent to the president of Egypt and also to Chelsea Clinton saying this had nothing to do with the video. We know better. Then she went out and told that lie, and she wonders why people don't believe her. 800 pages. We all invite the American public to read it. I know you've gotten farther than anybody I know, Pete. He's a speed.
It's an early morning.
We'll cover it as it breaks.